Welcome to Heart Talks. The purpose and intention for these talks is to inspire, empower, and to bring a higher perspective and community awareness with topics not only in real estate, but also in finance, relationships, wellness, and spirituality. So get ready and enjoy as we share our next episode on Heart Talk. Welcome everyone to our first episode of Heart Talks. I'm excited to bring this forward. This is Lala Delgado with RE/MAX Champions and founder of Heart to Heart Miracles. We wanted to bring Heart Talks forward. We felt it was time to bring a platform that would collaborate with the community. The intention of this platform would be to bring a higher perspective, not only in real estate, but in business, sharing people's stories to inspire, to empower, and learn. And today I have the pleasure of bringing our very own Jennifer. Most of you know Jennifer as the broker of RE/MAX Champions, but today we're going to get to hear her story. Today we're going to dive deeper and just get personal with her. And that's the purpose of these Heart Talks, is really to go deep with our conversations and really learn about the person. And hopefully you'll be able to take some insights from this interview. So Jennifer, thank you for being here. And it's exciting. This is our first episode for Heart Talks.
It is, and thank you for having me here.
Of course. And I'm excited to bring this forward. And when I shared this idea, you were on board because we felt it was time to just kind of collaborate with the community and not just talk about real estate, but really get down deep and get personal with people in our community to learn and inspire and bring that higher perspective. But most of you know you as a broker. But I would like, Jennifer's my dear friend, and I think there's a lot more to that. And today I would like for you to share your story, more of the personal insight, more of how you began. So maybe you could share a little bit about going back to your younger self. What inspired you to get into this business and how it all began?
Thank you, Lala. And, first off, I just want to acknowledge you for bringing this forward. I think that this is a beautiful thing to do for the community. It's a beautiful thing to talk about real life stories, and share who we really are and what we're about, because a lot of the time we get lost in the identity of our work and we become, that identity. So I think sharing opens other people up to share and to just have more connection, with people and with the community. And so how did I get into real estate, or how did I begin, or
how
did it all start?
How did it all start? Like going back to your younger, how did you, let's go back to the very beginning.
So I knew that I always wanted to, I knew that I wanted to live my life on my terms. And I didn't know what that looked like, but I do remember being very young. And my parents, I come from a family that they are real estate investors mainly. And so they had mobile home parks. And I remember being a young girl, and we would live in Mexico about 5-6 months out of the year. And we would travel back and forth. And I saw that financial freedom that they had and that freedom in life. I mean, we got into a motorhome one time and traveled all across country to every state, across country, and just spent forever, as far as I remember, doing that. And so I knew in my mind that I didn't want my time to be bought and paid for, if that made sense. And I wanted to be in charge of my own either production or, just accountable to myself. Yes. Basically, whatever it is that I do is going to be an indication of how I'm going to live my life. And I wanted to have that opportunity. So real estate, it just ended up calling me.
Beautiful.
And I ended up diving into it. And, I haven't looked back. I love what I do. there's so many avenues, of real estate that you just never stop learning.
Beautiful.
And since it's, I think, in my blood, I listened to it growing up. I mean, I constantly, from a young age, remember listening to my father talk about money and how it works and what to do with it, how to make it grow, how to make your money work for you.
Wow.
And so from a very young age, I think that I had a different concept of how money operated and worked. And I sort of applied that, I feel, to every avenue of my life. And real estate, I mean, it's a great venue to do that in.
And just to put an age out there, like I would say, how old were you when you were already thinking about this? I mean, because this is something important. Most of us are playing with our dolls and our toys, but like if you could think back, when was the first time how old were you when you had that idea, that vision?
So I knew from, I can't remember the exact age, but I do remember that we were traveling across country in a motorhome that my dad had purchased. And I just remember seeing my parents, super free and full of life and doing random things. I mean, we would just stop and stay at different locations. I'd meet friends along the road. It was freedom. And then I remember being able to go and visit my grandmother, and I went to school in Mexico for about a year and a half.
I bet you didn't know that.
So that's where, I learned, kids learn so fast, let me
Absolutely.
tell you, they
Yeah.
learn so fast. And that's where I learned how to speak Spanish because I went to school there for a year and a half. So it was a young age. I knew, I always had that in the back of my mind that I saw the good parts, and not to say every family has good and bad, right? But I saw that aspect of our family and I really enjoyed it. And I really wanted to recreate that and live that, in my life somehow. And I didn't quite know what that would look like.
Right.
But, eventually, like I said, in real estate, there's so many paths. There's so many different things, that you can do to keep reinventing yourself, be creative, make money. Like there's just so many avenues. It's a blessing.
Wow, that's beautiful. So that's when the fire started to burn right there at a very young.
It did. Like I was young because it was when I would spend 4 or 5 months a year in Mexico. It's a very different life there than here.
Absolutely.
My mother's from a small town outside of Guadalajara, and very, very big traditions. A lot of family, everybody knows each other, playing in the streets until lights out, all hours, of the night. It was just freedom.
Just freedom, yes.
Just
absolutely.
freedom. And even though over there, people may not have had a whole lot, but they were happy. They were all, just so happy and full of community. And so, that freedom, I think, has always kind of stuck in my head.
That's beautiful. So at a very early age, you already realized that that was your purpose and that was your path.
Yes, I felt that it definitely was. Yeah, I definitely felt it was. There were a couple of years as I got a little bit older where I sort of rebelled against it, meaning sometimes we look at it and we're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go over this way and do something else. And I always would just revert back to it. So it was definitely my calling.
Wow, thank you. Bringing it now forward to the present moment and thinking back to the younger self. And there's always an experience or a person or something that we feel so grateful. At the time, we probably felt, why did I have to experience this? Or why did the person come into my life? But now we know better because we understand that we learned something. Life gave us a beautiful gift. At that time we didn't know. But looking back, what would you say something that you're truly grateful for? I understand that your parents were in the business and, that was also paid for you, but you knew at a very early age, this was my path. But something that you were truly grateful deep in your heart that you said, wow, I am so grateful for this in my life.
I don't think it's any one thing. I think that now looking back, after taking a pause and being able to evaluate. I had the trimilliar fracture or break on my ankle
Yes, we heard
over
about
a
that.
year ago. And so it made me sort of sit down and think about things that I haven't really thought about. And it's ironic because I know, I mean, we've been friends for a long time.
Absolutely.
And so everybody should know
Now we're declaring
Lala,
it. We declared it.
we declared it, but Lala has tried to prompt me and guide me on my spiritual journey for many years. And so I had the knowledge and I had the lingo and I had the awareness. You know, I had all of that because you did come into my life and you brought that awareness in. I didn't step into it and really live it until this happened to me. It takes sometimes a huge defining moment, you know, for you to make changes.
Right.
So I don't think that it's any one particular thing, but I started to evaluate my patterns and I became very grateful for all of my, what people would call failures, which at the end, they're really not failures.
Yes, they're only failures if we don't learn, right?
Yes, they're not, because they bring this new level of awareness.
Absolutely.
And you start to see where you're repeating patterns. And so I made decisions based on the fact that I wanted to, certain business partners that I chose during my career, I should not have chose those partners, not because they're not great people, only because we're not aligned with our belief systems. And sometimes you want something so much more for somebody else than what they want, even for themselves. It's the strangest thing. And when you don't have those aligned belief systems and ways of doing things, it's sort of destined to not, you know, work out in the end. And so it was definitely a lesson for me, but I'm super blessed for it because coming out of all of this, Lala, I realized that we have to be very part of, you know, having certain boundaries and loving ourselves and other people is knowing when to do that. Because sometimes holding those boundaries and, you know, finding what is really aligned with you.
Yes.
And then giving your energy to that, you know, makes things flourish so much more. And so it's all been, you know, a blessing. A lot of energy that I put out in locations that I should not have. However, at the end, you know, it's huge blessings that came to me because of a lot of awareness and dealing with that.
And this happened to you, I would say, was it 2021, the end of 2021?
So it was January of 2022, I had the first surgery.
Okay.
And then I had the second break in July because for reasons, you know, I just didn't listen to the doctors. But it's been, you know, it'll be a year since my second break in July. And it was very eye-opening.
Yes, yes. And how are you doing now? How are you feeling?
I'm
As
not
far as your
fully...
whole journey. I mean, I know you're not fully healed, but as far as the journey, I mean, you shared about how sometimes life is like that, right? Sometimes life brings us many situations, and how I feel about this inner work, it's very interesting because sometimes we're not listening to the signs. The signs are out there, and it does take an experience like that. And as unfortunate it might have been, because we saw you go through your journey, and we're seeing you right now, and how courageous, and you know, you were just able to get back on your feet, literally. literally. But I was able to witness your growth and, you know, the upset and why did this happen to me? But then now you're sharing about the beautiful gifts. And even though we want to be completely healed, we know that in the interior, there's other healing to go through. So I think that's such an amazing awareness there. And you talked about boundaries and you talked about working with people. But once again, this whole experience brought a whole new perspective into your life.
It did. It brought a perspective that I needed to see. And so I started to think, who am I truly aligned with? Where should I focus my energy?
That's huge.
What does that look like? And where do I want the future of this organization to go? or all of my companies for that matter. I started to look at working with people in a different light as well. I mean, are we aligned? Not just working with, anybody and everybody, but do we have a true purpose together? And I also brought, as you know, my daughter in,
Yes.
Brooke, and that brought a new fire to me as well. And I was telling her, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I feel like, as a mom, like certain things, when you work so hard to do certain things, and then you have one of your children that loves what it is that you do. And I see her as this young, I mean, she barely turned 23, and she's an amazing leader.
Yes.
She is an amazing leader. She loves people, cares about them, yet she has her solid boundaries in place to know what she wants. And she's able to carry herself in a way that is so just, kind, loving, and yet strong. And so I just, I feel so grateful that all of this happened to me, because I learned so much in all of it, Lala. Like, I learned to just really take a look at, so many, the things that you've basically been telling me to do for 7 years, I finally took a look at. And
Well, sometimes, like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appear. When the teacher's ready, the student will appear. But I think it's wonderful, and we're going to get an opportunity to talk to Brooke later, interview with her. And also, she's going to share her story. But I think it's just amazing how you were able to come back, embrace it, not just in the business, but also internally. And I think that's the takeaway here, is if there's anything that I would like anyone listening to this is, your journey, your experience about, going through that painful experience, but how it forces us sometimes to be still. It forces us to stay put in bed or whatever it is, and then go inside and say, wow, what is really happening here? To really take a look at our life.
yes, and to look at what's around us.
What's around us, and what is it, and which way am I going? And that's why I felt your story needed to be shared and needed to be heard. If there's someone out there that's going through an experience similar to this, maybe there's some kind of inspiration, and you certainly have inspired a lot of people here, not just in the organization, but in the community. Just as a woman leader, as a woman broker, as a woman entrepreneur, how you're growing your businesses. That's the reason why I wanted to come here. When I came to RE/MAX Champions, I wanted to align myself with the strong, empowering women like yourself. If I wanted to learn the business, what's the best place to learn than from someone that's already doing it? So you're already doing it. You're not talking about it. You've been doing this for many years. And then there comes a time when we've grown in the physical realm, in the business realm, and then now it's time for us to go inside. And I think that's what I see where you're at right now, is growing internally. And so let's talk about that. Like, here you are, you experienced this injury, and now it's like you're forced to look at yourself, you're forced to look at your whole life, and how that looked like for you in the internal healing, the internal work, the spiritual work that some of us would call, just really taking a look at yourself. Because that's all you had right there. You had yourself. You had a lot of time with yourself, right?
So when you have injury, you find out for sure really quick who is there for you and, who is not. And ironically, a lot of the time, the people that you feel will be, they're the ones that are not. And so I learned a lot, in that way as well. The people that sort of guided and helped me through it. Mind you, I'm grateful that it was just an ankle, because a lot of the time for people to wake up, they have to have a heart attack or get serious illness, or have a loved one have a serious illness, or somebody pass away, or it takes something major. And so thank God I was tapped on the shoulder. God kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, take a look around with this, and that's what I did. It is definitely challenging, painful work to sit there and really look at not only your behaviors and what it is that you're doing and how you're living your life, but also to look at everything that has gone on and occurred in your life, and certain things that have happened as a result of decisions. Like, it is hard to look at. And I think for us women, we are natural caretakers.
Absolutely.
And because we're natural caretakers, everybody else that needs help, a lot of the time we want to give it to them. And I realize that if I don't take care of myself, and if I don't give all of the love to myself, then I'm not going to be good for anybody.
It's huge.
And it took a lot for me to learn that. And it's ironic because I remember when you and I would talk and we would have, and I'm going to say it again, it's the same things that you would tell me, but, hearing it and then seeing it and applying it are two different things. So us women in this industry, especially, it's getting better. It used to be, very male driven. And it's definitely, getting better. A lot of, I think, female leaders and entrepreneurs are definitely coming up and showing themselves a whole lot more. But it is a challenge to navigate this type of arena. And a lot of the time it does change us, and we sometimes lose who we even are.
Absolutely. And just really creating a balance, I think it's very important in business and in our personal work. As you said, we had ourselves, and learning to give that self-love, learning to really get honest with ourselves and say, okay, where do I need to make that shift? What do I need to learn from this experience? And I think you beautifully expressed it where you said, wow, I had to learn to love myself, because if I don't fill up, how can I be any good for anybody, for any of your businesses? I mean, you've done a wonderful job growing and expanding your businesses and escrow, mortgage, real estate, now financial planning, and who knows what else, investor. I mean, the list goes on. And I really feel like, wow, the calling was, okay, now it's time for that inner work, that time of giving ourselves that love. And I think as women, as like you said, we tend to be that caretaker. Just, how to learn to love ourselves is huge. And as simple as it sounds, it's not very easy. So I just want to acknowledge you for just sharing that with us, because that's being vulnerable. That's really allowing ourselves to be seen transparent in front of everybody and saying, look, this is what I had to do to learn my own internal growth.
It is liberating. So for all of the women out there, it is liberating. So when you bring something to light, meaning when you talk about something that you've either gone through, something painful, or a lesson that a lot of people might say, oh, wow, that was, a horrible thing to witness somebody, going through. When you bring something to light and you acknowledge it and you own it and you say, yes, here I am, this is me, and I'm proud of who I am. No matter what it is that has either occurred or decisions that I have made, like, it all served a purpose.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of us women, sometimes, or people in general, want to not express and be vulnerable about things that they have either been through or decisions that they have made. And owning it is it's so liberating.
Definitely.
It's so powerful and liberating. And I think that, it's time for us women to just say what it is that we're feeling.
Express that. And like they say, our mess is our message. And, we all have a story. And I think that was the main purpose for Heart to Heart Talks, is just to really allow ourselves to express and allow ourselves to share that deeper story and that deeper healing with our community. And like I said, it's not just in real estate or business, but also going into that wellness aspect, because that does affect our health. It does make us sick, the stress, the anxiety, the rushing around, and just learning to just be still and say, okay, what is it that I need to look at, and what direction do I need to go? It's kind of like a reset. And I almost feel like it was a death. We were talking about a death. It's like a rebirth. A rebirth that you had is just really getting honest with ourselves and taking responsibility for the decisions we made. But that's okay because we can always redirect. We can always start over and we can always choose again. And that's always my favorite word that I like to say. I can see this differently and I can choose again. Yes, yesterday it didn't go well, but guess what? Today's a different day. And today I can redirect and choose again. And I believe this message that you're sending now to our community, to anyone that's called to listen to this, you know, about the liberation, about just allowing ourselves to be free and expressing and sharing our story. And not just the business aspect, but really, you know, in our personal lives, because I know this was very painful for you. We watched you go through your whole process and journey, and you're still healing, but it's also beautiful to see how you come through it, because, you know, we're also learning. And your daughter, you mentioned your daughter and how you've been a leader to her. And now we're paving the way for our children and future generations.
Yes.
And how they're showing up in a whole different way. And we're like, wow, look at them. They're, you know, they're on fire.
Absolutely.
And they're teaching us how to show up for ourselves in today's
Oh, absolutely.
lives.
I've learned so much from my daughter at her young age. And when you start doing all of this and taking a look at your life and doing, you know, the inner work and looking at ourselves, things happen. I mean, you will find people fall away, right? Like I've had a lot of people that have left my near vicinity, let's say. They fall away, and then, but other people also begin to come in.
Other pillars.
And things start to shift around. And then I've also found that, ironically, nothing has changed regarding the businesses that I have, right? Like I have all of the businesses and everything, but I find that I'm so much more calm. I'm so at peace, and I have a lot of time. And then I'm thinking before, well, what was I doing? Was I like maybe unconsciously busy with things that don't even really matter, because I have so much time to think of, you know, other things or pour into, you know, other projects or other things.
You have time to create.
I have time to create. Like it opened the
beautiful.
doors, like the calmness and that feeling.
And I feel that's probably attributed to where are we leaking our energy, or where are we giving our energy? So if we really get clear of, because we talked about time, you know, there's 24 hours in a day, you know, depending how we lay out our day, but where are we sending our energy? Where is our energy going? But when we realize that we pull it all back in and really take a look at where I choose to place my energy and focus on, then we have time to create. Because now all that nonsense, all the distractions, all that noise goes away, and now we have time to create. So I think that's so beautiful.
Yes, and it's definitely a journey, but it's well worth it. It's well worth going through, and I'm very grateful that this happened to me. As ironic as it sounds, I'm still fighting my way to get back. I finally jogged, you know, for the first time, Lala, in a year. Like, finally jogged, and only for a minute at a time, right? And so, but little by little, you know, I'm coming back, and I find that, ironically, this ankle healing, you know, it's taking its time, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm grateful that it's coming back.
And patience. I'm really hearing patience coming forward, learning to be patient with ourselves as well, because, you know, in this society, we want everything right away.
Yes.
But what I'm really hearing is the healing journey has really allowed you to step in a different way, a different person, even though we see you the same inside. A lot of beautiful things are happening. So I would like to ask you, going through this experience, sharing your story and the visions for the future, because we talked about creating. And I know we can sit here and talk all day, but in terms of this talk, just what can we expect from Jennifer? We understand, you're growing your businesses. They're doing amazing. I think you've had some amazing years in business. They're just flourishing and thriving in all areas. And of course, because you're showing up every day, your presence and your leadership obviously has a lot to do with it. But if you could see yourself, your future self, and say, this is what I would like to bring forward now, knowing what I know now, your vision and your intention going forward.
So I know in my heart that this next decade will be the best one yet. And I feel it with every fiber of my being. I feel the most solid, the most happy, the most strong. And I just know that great things are coming in this next decade. Champions is my heart, all of it. I do feel that moving forward, definitely more, I don't want to say I haven't been selective. However, I want to feel aligned with all of the people that I'm working with. Beautiful. And I want to feel that, we're offering as the Champions community a lot of great tools, not just for our community, but for the community. So I want to bring that awareness forward, for other people. I've always collaborated. I think that,
I believe
that.
So, yes.
We've always been collaborators at this organization. We share ideas with others. But I want to bring that to a new level because I feel like, especially in our industry, Lala, like people feel like there isn't enough for everybody. And there is. There's so many resources that we can literally share ideas and come together, as a community and just be, let's say, one huge powerhouse, right, in the entire industry, if we all just share ideas, because there's so much abundance for all of us. So I just feel like, in the future, that's going to be a lot of, what we do. Obviously, we sell real estate.
Obviously,
we sell real estate. That's our, product. I always say people is where our focus should be.
Yes.
And that's our true, meaning, business, and what we should be delivering the best of ourselves to all of the people that we work with. So I feel like that is, the future. This will be, without a doubt, thank God, an amazing decade to come. My daughter is now here. I feel like it is complete. Does that make sense?
It goes on to the next generation.
Like it is complete, and she brings a whole new array of not only, the youth,
She's
right?
On fire.
That's coming in.
On fire.
I see all of these young kids walking around. I'm like, okay, all the youth is coming in, which is amazing. The next generation. And then we're all working together with the youth, and we're bringing each other things. So I just feel like it is really an amazing time for not only myself, but I just feel like the companies as a whole. And I'm very blessed.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I really feel that as you're sharing here, and I know you guys are watching here, but I could feel what you're saying is true. I feel it in your heart, and I feel that fire coming through. And I just want to thank you for allowing us this platform and for being you and for being honest. I know since I've been here, we've always collaborated, and I really have had the pleasure of knowing you personally and in a deeper personal way. And I know that you do want to bring things forward and to grow and to share and just to collaborate. And so I just want to thank you for being you, and also for allowing us to bring Heart to Heart Talks here. And this is our first episode. And for those of you that are watching, if you have a story that you'd like to share, please reach out to us, because this is not just about RE/MAX Champions or this office. It's about the community, and it's about sharing and bringing that higher perspective to inspire and learn from each other. So once again, Jennifer, thank you so much for allowing us to bring this forward, and just for being a beautiful, beautiful soul and beautiful heart, and obviously my friend.
Thank you.